I never set out to find something like this. I was just killing time, scrolling through a few hidden forums on the dark web. Most of them were filled with nonsense, fake government leaks, wild conspiracy theories that collapsed after 2 minutes of research. But every now and then, something real slipped through. That's how it started. It was a random thread on a whistleblower forum. No fancy branding, just a black background, white text, and a title that stood out. Files from inside Area 51, full data dump, not clickbait. I almost laughed. If I had $1 for every fake leaked government files post, I'd be sipping cocktails in the Maldives. But something was different about this one. The user who posted it wasn't a throwaway account. They had been active for over a year, mostly discussing cybersecurity breaches. Their past leaks had led to real news stories. If they were faking it, they were really committed. I clicked the thread. Inside was a single .onion link, buried between paragraphs of what looked like a personal rant. The user, going by the alias Signal Lost, claimed to have worked in cybersecurity for a Nevada-based government facility. He never explicitly said Area 51, but he didn't need to. He talked about years of patching network vulnerabilities, monitoring outgoing data, keeping classified information from leaking. Routine work, until one day something slipped through. A random hard drive got flagged. 1 terabyte of data copied onto an external device that wasn't government issued. That should have triggered an immediate lockdown, but instead, silence. No reports, no meetings, just dead. Buried. That's when he started digging. According to him, he found a hidden section of the network, something that shouldn't exist. It was encrypted beyond normal government protocols, and inside he found files that didn't belong there. Blueprints, X-rays, DNA samples, and the worst part? None of it was human. I hesitated for a second. Then, against my better judgment, I copied the .onion link and opened it. I half expected it to be dead. These things don't stay online for long. But it loaded. The screen showed a basic file directory, no graphics, no UI, just a list of folders with vague but ominous titles. Biological samples, non-terrestrial craft design experimentation logs. I clicked the first one. Inside were medical reports and microscopic images. The descriptions were short, clinical, but the implications were massive. Samples labeled with genetic sequences that didn't match anything in public databases. Some were marked as hybrid structures, others as composite biological entities of unknown origin. Then, I opened the X-rays. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. They looked human, almost, but the bones were wrong. Elongated skulls, extra vertebrae, joint structures that shouldn't exist. Some skeletons had symmetrical fractures, as if their bones had been reshaped deliberately. My stomach turned. Then I noticed the video files. Most were grainy surveillance footage, silent, shaky shots of sterile medical rooms. Figures lay on examination tables, motionless, no sound, no movement, except for one. A file labeled Test Subject 26 Movement caught my eye. It was only 12 seconds long. I clicked play. At first, nothing, just another silent room. A figure under a thin medical sheet, completely still. I was about to close it, then it twitched. Barely noticeable at first. Then the fingers flexed, the head shifted, and in the final frame, right before the video cut out, it sat up. I slammed my laptop shut. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't some fake horror story. This wasn't a creepy pasta trying too hard. This felt real, and if it was real, that meant somewhere out there, someone was running experiments on something that wasn't human, and they had lost control. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared. It wasn't paranoia, not the kind where you feel like someone's watching you. It was something else. The weight of knowing I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see. I had spent hours going through those files, bouncing my VPN through random locations, making sure my connection was as anonymous as possible. But the more I read, the less I understood. Not because the documents were encrypted, they weren't, but because the information inside them felt impossible. Aerospace patents that didn't match anything we had publicly, materials with atomic structures that shouldn't exist, reverse engineering attempts on technology they clearly didn't understand. And then I found the UFO blueprints. These weren't concept sketches, not wild theories. These were detailed engineering schematics, the kind you'd see in real aircraft manufacturing. Full wiring diagrams, propulsion calculations, labeled components with notes in standard military shorthand. They hadn't designed it, they had taken it apart. I downloaded a few PDFs not because I planned to share them, but because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Then I found something worse, a folder labeled Failed Propulsion Tests. Inside were internal memos, testing logs, dry technical descriptions about energy sources and field dynamics. I skimmed through them, expecting nothing, until I saw a report with a red warning banner, Terminated Containment Failure. I opened it. Most of it was complex calculations, things I didn't fully understand, but near the bottom, a section caught my attention. Unintended consequences. It described a test. A propulsion experiment conducted outside of Earth's atmosphere. It didn't say how far, just that it was beyond low orbit. The objective? To activate an energy field based on a recovered craft's design. The problem? It worked. For exactly 2 minutes. Then something happened. The report didn't explain it directly, just that the generated field collapsed unpredictably, causing multiple telemetry failures. And then the last line made my blood run cold. Following the incident, anomalous energy readings were detected in multiple locations worldwide, further investigation pending. I stared at that sentence for a long time because I remembered something. Years ago, there had been random blackouts around the world. Sudden losses of power, places that weren't even connected to the same grids, no official explanation, just gone. Then, minutes later, everything returned to normal. At the time, it was brushed off, a coincidence. But now I wasn't so sure. I leaned back in my chair. At this point, I had 2 options. 1, forget everything. Close the tabs, delete the files, pretend I never saw any of it. 2, keep reading. I clicked on the next folder. This one was labeled Retrieved Objects, Unidentified. I opened the first image file. It wasn't what I expected. No flying saucers, no metallic discs. Instead, it was a fragment, a jagged piece of metal, photographed under high-intensity lighting. The surface looked liquid, almost reflective, but the edges were completely solid. The caption underneath read, Recovered from Incident Site 9, Composition Unknown. There were hundreds of photos like that, fragments, pieces, components, something much larger. And then, buried deep in the folder, I found a video file. This one was different. Instead of a test chamber or medical lab, it showed a warehouse, rows of shipping crates, each labeled with serial numbers. The footage was shaky, like someone was recording with a handheld device. The person filming stopped in front of one particular crate. The label was smudged, but I could still make out a few words. Non-terrestrial object priority storage. The person reached out, grabbed the edge of the lid, and pried it open. The video cut off immediately. No reaction, no explanation, just a sudden abrupt end. I sat there for a long time. This wasn't just some hoax. This wasn't an overhyped conspiracy theory. This was real. And whatever had been inside that crate, I don't think it was meant for us to find. I should have stopped. I should have shut my laptop, deleted everything, and moved on like none of it ever happened. But I didn't. Something about that last video stuck with me. The way it cut off so suddenly, like the person filming had second thoughts about what they were about to see. I needed to know more. Not from the same site. I had already pulled everything I could from there. Instead, I went deeper into the dark web, searching for any mentions of these leaked files. That's when I found something strange. A different thread, not from Signal Lost. Someone else, an anonymous user who had posted just days before. The title? They found something in Antarctica and it was an ice. At first, I thought it was unrelated, just another conspiracy theory buried in an obscure forum. But the more I read, the more the pieces started to connect. This user claimed to have worked logistics for an international research station in Antarctica. Their job was simple: track shipments, log deliveries, make sure everything was accounted for. Then one day, a shipment arrived that wasn't on any manifest. No paperwork, no explanation, just an unmarked crate flown in by a private contractor. They thought nothing of it. The base received classified equipment from time to time, military research, government-funded projects. It wasn't unusual. But then another shipment arrived, and another, and another. Each one was stored away in a secured section of the base. Only a handful of people had access. That's when they started to wonder what the hell was inside them. One night, out of curiosity, they checked the internal database. Most of the shipments had vague descriptions, experimental materials, geological samples, but one stood out: recovered asset, non-biological, no weight, no dimensions, no sender. Just those 4 words. They tried to access the full record. It was locked. Government encryption, the kind of security you don't see outside of military networks. And then, just like that, the shipment stopped. No explanation, no follow-ups. The only thing they knew: a U.S. military aircraft landed at the base a few days later and took everything. I sat back, staring at the screen. At first, I wasn't sure if the story was legit. But then, at the bottom of the post, the user shared something unexpected: a set of GPS coordinates. I copied them, ran a search, and that's when I found something weird. Satellite images showed a large circular indentation in the ice. Not a building, not a natural formation, just a massive depression, as if something had once been buried there and then dug out. My chest tightened. It was starting to make sense. The leaked files from Area 51 mentioned retrieved objects, but they never said where those objects had been found. What if some of them weren't from the Nevada desert? What if they had been buried under the ice for centuries? I went back to the dark web forum to message the user who had posted about the Antarctica shipments. But when I refreshed the page, the thread was gone. Not deleted, not removed by a moderator, just gone, like it had never existed. I checked my browser history. The link was dead, the page wouldn't load, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I had gone too far. Not in a paranoid way. No one was knocking on my door. No one was chasing me. But I had a gut feeling that I wasn't supposed to be seeing any of this. I closed my laptop, stepped away, tried to forget about it, but I couldn't, because now I understood something. This wasn't just about Area 51. This was bigger, global, and somehow I had a feeling I had only scratched the surface.